Her son kicked her out, but she was hiding $1.4 million. What if the person you trusted most was the one who pushed you out? But little did they know, you were hiding a fortune that would change everything. This is the story of a mother betrayed, homeless, and underestimated, who fought back to reclaim not just her home, but her destiny. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel as a sign of support. For nearly a decade, Caroline Walker had spent her life in the bustling city of Abu Dhabi, working as a live-in caregiver for a wealthy family. She missed the scent of pine in the air back in Oregon, the sound of cicadas in the summer, and above all, the warmth of her family, especially her two sons. Every dollar she earned, she sent home, trusting that her eldest, Damon, would manage her affairs responsibly. Caroline dreamed of the day she'd finally return to enjoy the fruits of her labor. That day had come. She stepped off the plane at Portland International Airport with a suitcase filled with modest clothes, her back aching from years of hard work and her heart full of anticipation. Her younger son, Ethan, had promised he'd be there to greet her, but as she walked through the arrival gate, scanning the crowd, there was no sign of him or Damon. Caroline took a cab to the small suburban home she'd purchased years ago, now under Damon's name, because she had wanted to avoid the complexity of managing property from abroad. Her hand trembled as she reached for the doorbell. It had been 10 years since she'd been home. The door opened a crack. Damon stood there, taller than she remembered, arms folded, eyes cold. "Mom?" he asked, almost like he hadn't expected her. "I told you I was coming," she said with a tired smile, reaching for a hug. Instead, he stepped aside without warmth. "You didn't give us much notice." Caroline entered her own house, now barely recognizable. The cozy decorations she remembered had been replaced by sleek furniture, a giant flat screen, and gaming consoles she'd never allow when the boys were young. A woman she didn't know sat on the couch, chewing gum loudly, flipping through TV channels. "Who's this?" Caroline asked. "My girlfriend Tasha," Damon said simply. As Caroline walked around the house, her heart sank. Her bedroom had been turned into a storage room. Her personal photos were nowhere to be found. It was as if she'd never existed there. "We weren't expecting you to stay," Damon said bluntly. "It's kind of full here." She blinked, her voice soft. "This is my house." He gave a half shrug. "Legally, it's mine now. You signed everything over years ago, remember? I trusted you." He looked away. The tension grew over the next few days. Damon's girlfriend treated her like a stranger. Caroline couldn't believe this was the home she'd worked herself sick to build. She tried reaching Ethan, but his phone went to voicemail every time. One evening, after another terse conversation with Damon about getting her own place, she retreated to the attic. Dusty boxes lined the walls. She opened one and found a tattered ledger, records of every dollar she had sent home. 10 years worth, rent, school fees, groceries. Over $1.4 million had passed through Damon's hands, but the accounts were empty. Her knees buckled. Her son hadn't just taken her home, he had stolen her future, and he didn't even care. She closed the box, her expression hardening. Caroline had come home to retire in peace. Now she had a war to fight. Caroline barely slept that night. She lay on the attic floor, staring at the rafters, her fingers clenched around the ledger. Every page told the story of her sacrifice. 16-hour shifts, sleepless nights, missed holidays. She had scrubbed floors, bathed strangers, and cared for sick children. Not her own, but someone else's, so her sons could have a better life. Now the reality clawed at her like a bitter wind. Her oldest son had used her money to build a life of his own, and she had become a stranger in the house she bought. By morning, Caroline came down to the kitchen to grab a cup of coffee. Damon sat at the table, tapping on his phone. His girlfriend Tasha didn't even look up from her bowl of cereal. "We need to talk," Caroline said calmly. Damon glanced at her with a sigh. "About what now? You've taken everything. The house, the money. What did you do with it?" He tossed his phone down. "You gave it to me, Ma. I used it. Paid off stuff. Bought the car. Paid Ethan's tuition. Took care of things." Caroline's jaw tightened. "You didn't take care of anything. You took care of yourself. You're being dramatic, he said, standing. Look, I don't want to fight, but it ain't working. You being here, it's stressing Tasha out. You gotta go. Go where? She whispered. Damon shrugged. You've got friends, right? Maybe one of those shelters downtown? Caroline stared at him, not believing what she just heard. Her heart didn't just ache, it cracked. I gave up everything for you. He rolled his eyes. Don't guilt trip me, Mom. You did what you had to do. Now I'm doing what I gotta do. By afternoon, Caroline found herself standing at the edge of a park in downtown Portland, gripping her single suitcase. Damon had dropped her off without a word, pulling away like she was just another errand to run. She sat on a bench, watching strangers pass. Teenagers laughed, couples walked dogs, a man played guitar with his case open for tips. The city bustled around her as if nothing had happened. She had no phone, no bank account, and no one to call. For the first time in her life, she was truly alone. Hours passed. She wandered the streets, trying to remember the last time she felt this small. That night, she found herself at a women's shelter. The intake volunteer looked surprised when Caroline mentioned she'd just returned from working abroad. What happened? The young woman asked gently. Caroline gave a tired smile. I trusted the wrong person. The shelter gave her a bed and a hot meal. It wasn't much, but it was safe. As she lay there staring at the ceiling, she knew one thing for sure. Damon may have taken her home, but he hadn't broken her spirit. He thought she was weak. He'd soon learn how strong she really was. Life at the women's shelter was humbling, but quiet. The scent of bleach and stale coffee clung to the halls. Each morning, Caroline folded her thin blanket and waited her turn for a lukewarm shower. She'd never imagined herself here, sharing space with women fleeing abusive husbands, addiction, or just the raw cruelty of the streets. But she didn't let it crush her. She had something most of the others didn't, a secret. Damon might have stolen everything with his name on it, but Caroline had never told him about the offshore savings account she'd quietly opened during her 6th year working abroad. She'd started it on a whim, with a Western expat who helped domestic workers learn basic investing. Most of her money had gone to her sons, but not all of it. Caroline had hidden away $1.4 million in long-term savings and overseas bonds, using her passport and a trusted former employer to maintain access. She hadn't even told Ethan. That money was her last resort, her insurance if life ever turned against her. And now life had done just that. Caroline spent her days in the library using the public computers to check on her account, still secure. The interest alone had grown steadily. Her hands trembled the first time she saw the updated balance, $1.46 million. It was there, untouched, quietly growing. She didn't touch a penny, not yet. Instead, she used the computer time to update her resume. She reached out to her old employer's family in Abu Dhabi. They responded within a day. Mrs. Al-Rashid, the matriarch, was overjoyed to hear from her. Caroline, we thought you were settled in America with your family, the message read. You always have a place in our home. Would you like to come back? She read the message twice, her eyes blurring. After all she'd given her sons, the only people who truly valued her were strangers from another continent. But Caroline didn't want to go back just yet. She had something else in mind. She began researching housing prices across the state, small investment properties, mobile homes, and fixer-uppers in quiet towns. She learned about local ordinances, rental markets, and property taxes, all for a reason she kept to herself. She didn't want revenge. She wanted power. One afternoon, while walking back to the shelter, Caroline spotted someone sitting on a bench, hunched over in a hoodie. The boy looked up. It was Ethan, her younger son. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking, "I've been looking for you everywhere." Caroline's first instinct was to run, to flee from the hurt, but something in his eyes made her pause. He looked older, weary. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know what Damon did. When I found out, he said you went to live with friends. I didn't know he kicked you out." She sat beside him. "It's okay. You're here now." "I want to help," Ethan said. "I don't have much, but I'll find a job. Anything. You don't deserve this." Caroline gave a soft smile. What Damon didn't know was that the woman he'd thrown out now held more power than he ever dreamed of. And she was just getting started. Caroline stared at Ethan for a long moment, unsure of what to say. Her heart ached with both relief and sorrow. At least one of her sons hadn't completely lost his way. They sat quietly on that bench under the fading autumn sun, the world rushing past them. But for Caroline, time slowed. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, her resume. "I've been working on this," she said, handing it to Ethan. "I'm not done yet. There's still more I want to do." Ethan looked at it, confused. "You're going back to work?" She nodded. "Maybe, but not like before. I've been thinking long and hard. I didn't spend 10 years building someone else's dream just to be treated like garbage in my own home." Ethan lowered his head in shame. "I'll talk to Damon. Make him give the house back." Caroline let out a dry laugh. "Sweetheart, if Damon could be reasoned with, we wouldn't be here." They parted ways that evening with a hug that lasted a beat too long. Caroline knew Ethan was genuine, but she also knew this was her battle to win. Over the next few weeks, Caroline's days were a blur of planning. She returned to the library, drawing up a blueprint for the rest of her life. She wasn't content with just surviving anymore. She wanted to thrive, and she had the means to do it. Quietly, she liquidated a small portion of her savings, just enough to move into a low-rent apartment across town. It was modest. One bedroom, no furniture except a mattress on the floor, and a card table in the corner. But it was hers. She didn't tell Ethan yet. She needed to move in silence. The first thing she bought after moving in? A new laptop. The second? A real estate course. Each day she studied the markets. Suburbs with rising rents. College towns with housing shortages. She found undervalued duplexes in struggling neighborhoods and distressed homes begging for a second chance. Just like her. By December, Caroline used $85,000 from her account to purchase a foreclosed triplex in a quiet corner of Eugene, Oregon. It needed work, but nothing she couldn't manage with the right contractors. She hired a local crew, paid them fair wages, and visited the property every other day. She kept a journal, documenting every purchase, every milestone. "This is what starting over looks like," she wrote. Meanwhile, Ethan texted her regularly. He had landed a job at a mechanic shop and asked if they could meet again. She agreed, this time at a local diner. As they sipped coffee, he asked the question that had been gnawing at him. "Where are you staying, really? Damon said you were still at that shelter." She smiled, sipped her drink, and reached into her purse. She handed him a key. "This is the address," she said calmly. "It's my new place. I own it." Ethan blinked in shock. "Wait, how?" She leaned in, eyes steady. "Let's just say I'm not as broke as your brother thinks I am." For the first time in a long while, Ethan smiled, and for the first time ever, Caroline felt powerful. Caroline's new life moved quickly. In just 4 months, her triplex was fully renovated. She rented out the bottom 2 units to young families and kept the top one as a short-term Airbnb. Her attention to detail, fresh paint, welcoming decor, reliable appliances, made her tenants feel like they were in a home, not just another rental. The income trickled in immediately. She reinvested every dollar. Her days were spent juggling permits, vetting contractors, and attending city council meetings. She didn't dress like a millionaire, and that's exactly how she wanted it. A hoodie, jeans, and quiet confidence became her uniform. Nobody saw her coming. By the time spring arrived, Caroline had bought her second property, a small duplex near a university campus in Corvallis. This time she paid cash. From the outside, she looked like a resourceful retiree dabbling in real estate. But beneath the surface, she was building an empire, one brick at a time. Her neighbors at the shelter wouldn't have recognized her now. No more public transportation. She bought a dependable used Honda CR-V and stocked the trunk with contractor tools and bottled water. On weekends, she volunteered at soup kitchens, not because she had to, but because she remembered how it felt to be invisible. Damon, meanwhile, was busy flaunting a lifestyle that didn't last. He had sold Caroline's old furniture to fund a spontaneous trip to Vegas. Tasha posted photos online, expensive meals, hotel pools, borrowed luxury. They were burning through what was left of the stolen fortune like dry wood in a wildfire. Caroline saw it all. She had quietly hired a lawyer to track the movement of funds Damon had withdrawn from her accounts while she was abroad. With her name still listed on some of the original remittance documents, she had grounds to initiate an investigation. Her lawyer, an efficient woman named Laura King, assured her, "You have a case and you have proof." But Caroline didn't want the money back. She wanted the truth to land where it hurt. One afternoon, Ethan came by her new place. He walked through the doorway with wide eyes, looking around at the fresh paint, new fixtures, and sunlight beaming through clean windows. "This is amazing," he said. Caroline set down a folder of tenant contracts and smiled. "You want in?" He blinked. "In on what?" "My next project, a 4-unit building outside Salem. I'm going to renovate it, manage the leases, flip it if the numbers make sense. I need someone who isn't afraid to learn the ropes. Someone I trust." "You trust me?" he asked, surprised. She gave a small nod. "You came looking for me when I had nothing. That means everything." Ethan hesitated, then reached out and hugged her. Caroline closed her eyes. Damon had cast her out like an old coat. But she was no castaway. She was the woman behind the curtain now, pulling the strings, building wealth in silence, and preparing for the moment her oldest son would learn the truth. She had never been weak. She had just been waiting. Damon stood in the middle of the living room, phone pressed to his ear, pacing like a caged animal. "What do you mean the account's frozen?" he barked. "It's my money." On the other end, the bank representative's tone was calm but firm. "Mr. Graham, the account in question was opened jointly under your mother's name. Due to recent legal filings and questions of authorization, we've had to restrict access until the investigation is resolved." Damon hung up, his face red with frustration. Tasha looked up from her laptop. "Something wrong?" He glared at her. "Yeah, everything. The bank's freezing stuff, and the lawyer keeps dodging my calls." Tasha raised an eyebrow. "I told you not to blow through that money. We're behind on the credit cards. And I think the Lexus payment bounced." Damon flopped down on the couch, rubbing his face. "I don't get it. It was all mine. She gave it to me." But even as he said the words, doubt crept in. He remembered Caroline's quiet way of doing things, how she always had a plan B. She never trusted banks completely, never told anyone everything. What if she had something stashed away? What if this was her revenge? Across town, Caroline and Ethan stood in front of their newest project, a worn-down fourplex with chipped siding and overgrown bushes. Ethan stared at it, skeptical. "We're really doing this?" he asked. "We're already doing it," Caroline replied. "You ready to learn everything?" Ethan smiled, rolling up his sleeves. "Let's go." Inside, the place was a mess. Peeling linoleum, cracked windows, a water leak in one corner. But Caroline saw potential. She saw income, long-term equity, and most importantly, a legacy not tied to greed or betrayal. That evening, she checked her email and found a message from her lawyer, Laura. Subject, case update, strong standing. "Caroline, I've reviewed all the remittance documentation and submitted a formal complaint regarding Damon's unauthorized use of your funds. The state may pursue charges of financial elder abuse. You can press forward at your discretion, but I suggest we prepare for mediation first. We're in a strong position." Caroline read the message twice, then leaned back in her chair. She wasn't out for blood, but she wasn't backing down either. Damon needed to know actions had consequences. That weekend, Ethan invited her to grab lunch. They sat at a small cafe, sunshine streaming through the windows. He brought an envelope with him. "I got approved," he said, sliding it across the table. "Small business loan. I used your name as a reference. They said your property history helped." Caroline beamed. "I'm proud of you." "I couldn't have done it without you," he said. Her eyes welled with quiet tears. This was what she had worked for all those years. Not just money, but impact. Not just success, but respect. Later that night, she received a text from Damon. "I know what you did. You think freezing the money makes you the winner? I made you. Don't forget that." Caroline stared at the message, then slowly typed a reply. "You didn't make me. You just forgot who I was." Then she blocked his number. The next chapter of her life didn't include him, and that was the sweetest part of all. Spring melted into summer, and Caroline's world blossomed alongside the city's green parks and blooming gardens. Her fourplex renovation was nearly complete, and the rental applications were pouring in. Tenants were lining up for the fresh, bright spaces she'd worked tirelessly to create, a testament to her grit and vision. Ethan had transformed too. The young man who once searched for his mother in despair was now a confident partner in her business ventures. Together, they balanced budgets, negotiated contracts, and mapped out new acquisitions. Their relationship, once strained, grew stronger with every success. One afternoon, Caroline sat in her modest office, a sunlit corner of the new fourplex, when the phone rang. It was Laura, her lawyer. "Good news," Laura said cheerfully. "The mediation with Damon's attorney went better than expected. He's agreed to transfer the house back to you and pay restitution for the funds he misused." Caroline allowed herself a small smile, but didn't celebrate just yet. "We'll draft the paperwork," Laura continued. "But the best part? Damon's credibility took a hit. His reckless spending and dishonesty are now documented. You're protected." The house, her home, the place where she had raised her boys, dreamed of better days, and fought to keep her family together. It was coming back to her. That evening, Caroline stood on the porch of the reclaimed house, the sky painted in amber hues. Memories flooded in, birthday parties, late-night talks, moments of laughter and tears. Damon's betrayal had broken her, but it had not defeated her. She thought of the women still at the shelter, the ones she had met on her darkest nights. She vowed to use her newfound stability to give back, to help others reclaim their lives. The next day, Caroline and Ethan hosted a small gathering in the neighborhood park. They invited tenants, friends from the shelter, and even some local officials. Caroline spoke quietly but firmly about resilience, justice, and the power of never giving up. Ethan caught her eye and smiled. "You did all this?" "No," she replied, "we did." Caroline's story was no longer just about loss. It was about rebirth, about the strength of a mother's love, about the quiet power hidden in a woman who refused to be forgotten. And as the sun set on that summer day, Caroline knew that her future was hers to write, one chapter at a time. Caroline's journey from betrayal and homelessness to financial empowerment and reclaiming her home is a powerful reminder that strength often hides in silence. Despite being kicked out by the son she trusted, her resilience, strategic planning, and unwavering spirit helped her build a new life on her own terms, one where she not only survived but thrived. Her story proves that no matter how hard life knocks you down, with determination and courage, you can rise stronger than ever. If Caroline's story inspired you, take a moment to reflect on your own challenges. What small steps can you take today toward reclaiming your power and building the life you deserve? And if you know someone who needs a reminder that they're not